to, oh, okay. That just started, Dan? The
I'm
recording?
sorry, I forgot.
Okay, sorry, I didn't think that. Okay. So again, this is Kathy Gleason, President of Jernigan Community Council. This is our May 2nd, 2024 meeting, and we have approved the agenda as amended. And so now could I entertain a motion to approve the April 4th, 2024 minutes?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, John.
Second.
Could I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Steve.
Montooth.
Steve Montooth, yeah. Does anybody have any objections to the minutes? We always have caveated that, we'll go through and clean up any typos or any clarifications or anything, but essentially, this motion would approve the minutes. Any objection to approval of the minutes? If not, then the April 2nd minutes are approved. And thank you again to Chris for doing that, our new secretary. Okay, so Senator Matt Clayman is with us. I'm sure he's participating from down in Juneau. So would you please give a legislative report for us? We appreciate it.
Yeah, Senator Matt Clayman here, and hope we've had some great sunny weather in Juneau, although I think we're inside more than seeing the sunshine, and hope you're getting some good weather in Anchorage. Really, one of the biggest topic always late in the session is the budget. We've actually had a little bit more coordinated process with the House, between the House and the Senate this year. A couple of weeks ago, the House passed the operating budget over to the Senate, and the Senate passed the capital budget over to the House. And just yesterday, the Senate approved a revised version of the operating budget. I expect that will be considered by the House in the next couple of days. They probably will not concur, and that'll get a conference committee started next week. So the final details of the budget will be getting worked out here in the next 7 to 10, 12 days. We're 13 days away from our 121st day, which is the last day of session. So the budget's always going to be a big focus. A couple of the features of the budget, I won't go in lots of detail. There's some details on our community council update, but right now, for school public education, there's a $680 increase in one-time funding for the base student allocation that's included in the budget. And the dividend, always a big topic. And the House dividend amount was $2,272. The Senate dividend was $1,380, and in addition to that, there's about a $220 energy relief that goes back from last year that was part of the budget that was approved based on oil prices. So the total projected check in October of next year would be $1,580 in the dividend. Always a big topic. I can report gladly it's a balanced budget that the Senate passed, and that neither the House budget nor the Senate budget overdraws the earnings reserve, the 5% of market value limitation on withdrawals from the earnings reserve. So we are getting better at living within our means on the budget. And then the second topic to touch base on, always questions about crime legislation. I've been working as Senate Judiciary Chair on a consolidated crime bill, and we just actually passed that out of Senate Judiciary Committee. There's kind of 4 large parts. First is there's some increased penalties for fentanyl and methamphetamine that recognizes that the increased overdose deaths going on with both fentanyl and methamphetamine, and trying to increase the penalties for those who may be delivering and producing those dangerous drugs. There's provisions that close the gap between incompetent to proceed in criminal cases and an involuntary commitment proceeding. That's legislation that's responsive to the thing that happened to a West Anchorage constituent, Angela Harris, when she was stabbed a couple of years ago at the Lusac Library when she was returning books. There's provisions about making sure that out-of-state sex offenders have to register when they come to Alaska. There had been I think a drafting error in prior legislation, so we're working to fix that. And then the last piece is modifications to the grand jury rules that would make grand jury rules relating to hearsay similar to federal court and make the grand jury process more supportive of victims who've suffered really terrible crimes. So that's the highlights of the crime package, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you all may have.
Hey, thank you, Matt. Does anybody have any questions for Matt? Don't tell me once again you're going to get off easy.
Well, thank you very much. I've got a busy schedule as the night continues, so I'll probably just be on for a couple more minutes, then have to sign off. But I really appreciate your taking me out of order.
Okay. Oh, no problem. And sounds like things are running fairly smoothly down there this session. And so we so appreciate every year that all the work that you've done for us as a representative and senator. So last call, anybody have any questions or comments for Matt? Okay, if not, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you. You too. Okay, we'll get back to our agenda here. And so the next item on the agenda is announcements. And I've got a couple, and then we'll see if anybody else has anything. So tomorrow, May 3rd, is the last date to weigh in on if you have any preference of where a downtown transit center should be located. They've had an online voting, and you can look at their online open house at www.anktransitcenter.com. The 3 locations they're considering is the current one, which is down at forgot what the address is there, but I think everybody knows where the current one is, or the ConocoPhillips parking lot, which is the southeast corner of 6th Avenue and I Street, or the Chinook parking lot, which I'm not sure I ever knew that had a name, but it's at 3rd Avenue and E Street, kind of down the bluff. And so like where they, kind of hold the snow sculpture stuff and kind of sort of in that area, not quite. So anyway, tomorrow, like I said, tomorrow is the last day you can go online and vote if you have a preference for that. And then you're probably, everybody's been getting information online and in your mailboxes and from candidates about the mayoral runoff election. And so ballots were mailed on the 30th. So they were mailed out Tuesday. The election centers, which are at the Lusac Library and City Hall, they open May 7th. So if you want to vote in person, feel free to go to one of those 2 locations. The last day to vote, either in person or it must be, if you're doing it by mail, it's got to be postmarked by Tuesday, May 14th by 8 p.m. the last day. And there are drop boxes around town. The one closest to us is in the West High parking lot. Probably if anybody have used the drop box, you're familiar with that location. The second closest is the Spenard Rec Center. We, brings back memories of our co-sponsored West Side Candidates Forum, and now we're down to 2 finalists. And so I hope everybody takes the opportunity to vote. That would be great. So does anybody else have any announcements that they want to share? Okay, if not, we'll move on to what's new in Turnagain. So anybody have anything to report that's kind of happening within our neighborhood that you'd like to share? Okay, if not, we'll move on. Next on the agenda is the executive board report. So we don't ever schedule a board meeting this early in before, but we will be meeting in June. Trying to think what the first Thursday in June is. I don't have a calendar in front of me. Oh, yes, I do. Sorry. So it will be June 6th. So we will be meeting in June, and then we'll take July and August off in terms of a general membership meeting. I have no doubt that our land use committee will be meeting throughout the summer because there's still so many things up in the air that we are following and trying to provide input on. So thanks to Chris working with former TCC board member Carolyn Hall. Chris has now downloaded, I believe, our February, March, and April Zoom meetings on YouTube, and the link is embedded in the TCC minutes that Chris wrote. And I know there's previous meetings submitted by Carolyn as well. I haven't looked to see what our comprehensive situation is, but it's our responsibility to do that. Federation of Community Councils does not do that for us, which none of us knew for a long, long time. So a lot of them did not get archived and onto YouTube. Let's see. So the next item is Federation of Community Councils delegate report. As delegate, I did attend via Zoom the April 17th FCC delegate meeting. And as always, they have presentations by mayor's office, assembly chair Christopher Constant, and Anchorage School Board Margot Bellamy was presenting. And then we did have two PowerPoint presentation presenters, something on the Anchorage Economic Forecast and Sales Tax Initiative by Jenna Wright. She's the president of the Anchorage Economic Development Corporation. And then Vice Assembly Chair Meg Zelatil and Assembly members Anna Brawley and Daniel Voland provided a PowerPoint presentation on the Home Initiative, which is the proposal to reduce our zoning districts down to only 5. And so there was a lot of Q&A on that one. And there is a new, as announced last month, there is a new executive director that's been hired. And she is now working, except she's taking a vacation right away. So, so Jean is the office assistant manager that she's still working until May 17th, the day after Ari gets back. And then there is a job opening, you know, that people can apply for a part-time staff position and basically do what Jean is doing now. So does anybody have any questions or want any more information about either of the two kind of main items that were on the agenda as far as PowerPoint information? Okay, and those are available. If you go to the FCC website, they are downloaded if you want to take a look at them, either one of those PowerPoint presentations. So, okay, the next item on the agenda is the Minnesota fenced barrier median between West Northern Lights and Benson. And if you're regulars, you'll know that we passed a resolution asking for the ability for Spenard Community Council and ourselves to meet with DOT to discuss the possibility of removing that fencing, which we passed in our resolution passed, that's something we'd like to do. And we'd also like to collaborate with them in terms of a potential to put in the fourth leg of a pedestrian crosswalk at both the Minnesota and Northern Lights and the Benson and Northern Lights. Minnesota and Northern Lights and Minnesota and Benson intersections. And so our resolutions pass through the AMATS Community Advisory Committee, and they passed a resolution essentially supporting Spenard and our desire to see what we can do about getting that fence removed and moving forward to collaborate on that. And today, this afternoon, then the AMATS Technical Advisory Committee met, and I listened in on that, and I did provide some testimony. They also reviewed, they were considering approving the advisory group, and they made a few changes. It was hard to kind of follow all of the different amendments and how they were going to reword it. Essentially, they do support looking at adding those fourth legs on both of those intersections. They didn't necessarily support immediate removal of the fencing. They didn't think that it was a bad thing. They felt like it wasn't, didn't make the situation worse. I tried to stress that the opaqueness of the fencing where drivers can't see through it, pedestrians can't see through it, and then when they get from one end to the other, they're, then they're exposed kind of just right off the bat. And so I think that and Lindsay from Spenard Community Council provided comments. So hopefully we will be contacted at some point in the not too distant future to collaborate on this further discussion, but they did not really have a resolution that was as solid as the advisory commission. This will ultimately go to the AMAT's, oh, what's the last leg? Another commission, or another, the commission. Policy, AMAT's policy. And then it'll go to I'm not sure if it goes to the assembly or where it ends up next. It'll go to DOT. So anyway, it's not the ideal outcome that we would have hoped for as far as the action today, but they certainly understand that there's a need to continue studying the safety issues at those two intersections and the stretch of Minnesota between. So does anybody have any questions on that? If not, we'll move on to Lineary Park, Marston Ball Field. On April 23rd, there were 5 new diamond identification signs installed. I went down there. This was a multi-year process that finally came to a good ending as far as what we wanted to see. I took some pictures, but I haven't downloaded them yet, and I know it's going to be backwards, but this isn't an installed one, but this is what, the signage looks like. And I don't have the dimensions. It's probably about 2 to 3 feet, not quite 3 feet deep. They're nice, simple, they're easy to read. And 3 of them are named in memory of West Little League. Good volunteers and who put in a lot for the West Little League and the ball fields down there at Lineary. And then 2 of them are just have generic kind of names. And hopefully we won't have any more memorial names to take up those 2 for many, many years. But it was a very, it was nice to see that finally happen. And a big thank you to Mike and Molly Just. They happen to live in Turnagain on Iliamna Street, but their business, Shaman Traffic Control, they designed the signs, they produced the signs. I mean, they manufactured the signs and they installed the signs all for free. And so we really, really appreciate their efforts, and it's kind of just icing on the cake that they happen to live in Turnagain and be good Turnagain neighbors and residents. So so that is completed. The other thing that is still needing to be done at Lineary is the memorial garden. It was officially named along with those 3 memorial fields by the assembly a couple of months ago. And so we just have to work on getting some signage down there at the memorial garden, but that's not anything that West Anchorage Little League, of course, was involved with. So our council needs to take the lead on that. So that will hopefully happen sometime this summer. Let's see. Next on the agenda is just a brief update. I'd have Chris give this if he were here attending, but if you'll recall, Turnagain Community Council passed a letter of support for some rehab on one of the trails at Earthquake Park, kind of north of the parking lot and kind of in that area. And they applied for a Anchorage Park Foundation challenge grant to pay for that. And they were notified on April 26th, last Friday, that they did get funding. They were one of the applicants who received the funding for the challenge grant. So they're excited about it, and we'll see them working on this sometime this summer. So kudos to them for making that effort, and it'll definitely improve the hiking in that area. Let's see. So the next is, I was hoping to find out an update on this, but nobody's returning my calls and I can't find anything on the website. The other thing that we mentioned last meeting was the bike parking or bike anchorage also applied for a challenge grant through Anchorage Park Foundation. And they notified us that they were wanting to install permanent bike parking racks at several of the area ball fields, either soccer or baseball. And one of the locations is Laneri Park down by the ball fields where there's now diamond signage. And they didn't reach out to us beforehand. So we don't know where they intended to, and if they got the grant, where they intended to install them. That park does have a master plan, so we need to follow that master plan or amend it if we need to accommodate these. But I don't know if they got the money or not. So I'm still going to try and follow this and find out. And if they did get grant money, then we'll be working with them to make sure the installation of them is appropriate and adheres to the master plan. So does anybody have any questions on any of those items that I just keep talking about? If not, and welcome to others who have joined in since we first started the meeting. Thank you so much for attending. So last item under executive board report is the three kind of representatives who have been meeting with the airport. And Anna Brawley was one as well until she stepped down from being involved with Turnigan. But on April 19th, John Isaacs and Lamar Cotton and myself met with the Anchorage Airport Planning Manager, Terry Lenseth. So I'm going to turn this over to John, and he can just give a briefing of what we talked about. It was a really good meeting. So John, you want to take over?
It was nice that Terry is able to spend some time. There was a little bit of a scheduling confusion that we thought we were meeting with Craig, but we had a good meeting with Terry. She informed us, that we knew that Craig Campbell is stepping down as airport director, but still be around. They're looking at a replacement. And John Johansson retires this fall. So we wanted to express our appreciation for all the time and effort that both of them have given to TCC. We also told Terry that we've been very appreciative of the work that Eric is doing as the Communities Affairs liaison with TCC meetings and keeping us informed. So the first topic we dealt with was the K-Lot general aviation hangar that is kind of at the southeast corner of the Lake Hood Strip. And we have submitted comments on that. The lease went back out for review, and the lease has been approved. So the developer is required to meet with TCC, and you will need to schedule a land use committee meeting to decide when we can meet with the developer and look at sort of the details of what they're thinking about in terms of development, landscaping, tree buffering, that sort of thing. We did ask the airport for a copy of the permit and the opportunity to review the site plan when it's developed. And they did confirm that the developer will likely need a wetlands permit and a muni building permit. And certainly if there's a wetlands permit, that's something we might want to look at and comment on. So stay tuned on that. We talked briefly about the 150-foot right-of-way buffer that's along the sort of Lake Hood East Side Airport boundary, and that easement takes that land off the table for other development for the time being. She sort of clarified that. It's not like it's a permanent reservation, but at least it removes it from potential leasing for the time being. We talked a bit about the Lake Hood hangar project, and that client is asking for a lease extension with a decision due soon. They need it for project financing purposes. One of the things Kathy asked is that the site is not being used. Could it be used temporarily for relocation of the Charlie parking associated with the new aircraft tower rather than filling in new wetlands? And Terry said, no, the owner will be potentially building a hangar this summer. She did mention that Ted Stevens is taking over the land leasing authority for Lake Hood to require more accountability from the lessees and avoid land banking. And one of our concerns has been that a lessee will get a lease and sit there, do nothing with it, and then somebody else comes in and applies for a new lease. And you have land that could be developed taken off the table, which potentially means more filling of wetlands. So it sounds like they're going to be paying more attention to that. They mentioned that the newer air traffic control tower and Charlie parking relocation EA, which is coming out of Federal Aviation Administration. We've been trying to keep an eye on that and submitted some scoping comments. There's likely going to be a draft EA and a public meeting in June. So as soon as we hear anything about that, we will let people know. And then she suggested that we make a comment on the communication plan on what we want to have an opportunity to review. And Kathy mentioned a bit about that with the what we submitted in the communication plan. And I think that's it for my notes from our meeting with Terry, unless either Kathy or Lamar remember anything that I've missed.
I have my notes here, but I think you pretty well covered it. And she gave us a couple hours, which was amazing on a Friday afternoon. We really appreciated her time that she spent with us. And it was very interesting. And when we get to the airport communications plan, it's actually called the outreach plan now, but community outreach. But anyway, it used to be called the communications plan. I can delve into a little bit about what you touched on, John, on that with regard
Great.
to leasing and so forth. But yeah, it was kind of unfortunate that my idea, which I thought was a pretty good one, as far as where the Lakewood hangars are, you know, they built one giant one and their plan is to do three. And so you know, just sitting there, well, unbeknownst to me when I thought of this idea, they do have a subtenant that wants to build another one on that location this summer. And so that, you know, that kind of kicked that idea aside, but it, you know, it was interesting to think about anyway. So thank you, John. Anybody have any questions for John, Lamar, and or me on that? Merle, are you clapping or do you have your hand raised?
Have my hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, Merle.
Why were you all meeting with them without taking the land use committee with you to meet with Terry?
Well, when Anna was president, came up with the idea of meeting on a quasi-regular basis with, since the airport stopped doing stakeholder meetings where then a representative of Turnagain could attend those, and there were representatives from cargo and, you know, all sorts of places. They stopped doing those. And so Anna felt like, you know, and the board felt like that would be a good idea to meet regularly with them. And we did with Sesniak for a couple of times, and then of course Craig Campbell. So this isn't a new thing, Merle. We've done it on a quasi-regular basis. And so they wanted us to limit it to 3 people. So, you know, it was John, well, Anna as president and me as vice president / land use co-chair, and John as the other land use co-chair. And so, of course, last year, Anna became an assembly member and so is not involved with the council anymore. I'm president now. And so it made sense to replace, you know, that 3rd spot. And at that point in time, this K-lot proposal that would originally provide or allow them to develop right next to the Turnagain neighborhood down there, close to the area southeast of the strip. And so Lamar, who was getting very involved with the land use committee on that particular item, since he lives down there, so it made sense to include Lamar on that. And now Lamar is a board member as well. So I hope that answers your question, Merle.
I'm afraid it doesn't answer my question because it doesn't make any difference what the airport wants. We are a separate unit. We have a community council and we have a committee, and the committee is entitled to know what's going on and to be involved. Now, they cannot dictate to us, should not be able to dictate to us what they want. So I am very disappointed with the fact that you're doing that and you're not keeping the rest of us informed and as to what's going on. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on here with your next land use thing, that you seem to think that just because you guys or a committee of 2 or 3, that you don't not have to keep the rest of the people involved. And as you know, I was a member out at that airport for over 55 years, and I attend most of the airport meetings. So I have some knowledge of what goes on out there and what's supposed to go on out there. And there's a lot of things that have happened here, including the fact that we do not, the way they advertise what they are doing, they're now the legislature had a bill down there last week, according to the newspaper, to make them start putting this stuff in the news, advertising, doing their advertising and their notices to put them in the newspaper instead of putting them on their site, and then because it only appears once, and then if you call them and they say, "Well, we posted it elsewhere." Well, where's elsewhere? Is it in the ladies' John, the third compartment for the left? Nobody knows. So I am concerned that you guys need to follow through. Because if you're going to have it, you want people to participate, then let us participate, but do not go around us, and you do not. If Terry Linsworth does not get to dictate, should not be able to dictate to the community council who she wants to see set to come out there and talk with her.
Yeah, okay, so thank you, Merle. Terry did not dictate who meets with them. That was a TCC decision when Anna was president. And they felt like, and we've never met just with Terry before. As John alluded to, there was kind of a scheduling mix up, and Craig Campbell or John Johansson or Tim Kuhn, none of them were available, and occasionally somebody else sits in on it as well. But Terry was happy to meet with us in her office, so she invited us in there, and like I said, and John said it was good, and we normally we only meet for about an hour and a half, but she allowed it 2 hours. And so, but when that started, they said they really didn't want more than 3 people. They didn't want those to become TCC land use committee meetings. That was just opportunity to meet with some of the, higher positioned airport personnel. So appreciate your input. And I think that we've always reported after we've met with them at the next TCC meeting, what was discussed. So we've never tried to not inform general members about what's taking place and what kind of information is exchanged at those meetings. Okay, so thank you,
that's
John.
not-
I appreciate it.
Just answer
Merle,
one.
okay, go
Hold on
ahead.
a
one
minute,
more
Kathy.
question.
I want to rebut a little bit there. Remember that the rest of us have a right to ask our own questions. And are you asking the questions that I would ask? I don't think so. And also, if they're going to do this kind of a meeting, doesn't that have to be in a public notice? Why wasn't it public noticed? Now, they may want to meet with you and only allow you 3 to participate, but that should have been a public meeting, and the public could have sat on the backside and listened to what's going on.
Okay,
I'm
maybe
tired of-
during the airport report, you can ask Eric about that.
I'm not going to ask Erica about that. This is a TCC issue. So it's not.
Well, I
asking
can't answer
anybody.
that. I can't answer that question about public notice. And so that's not something that TCC can address, Merle.
So I'm going to make
moving
a suggestion if I could.
Okay, John.
The suggestion I'd like to make is these meetings are something that has been a productive way of us getting additional information from the airport. What we could potentially do a better job of is seeing what questions people might want us to pose to them when we meet with them. The next time we will meet with them will probably be, if it's a quarterly meeting, I would say in the fall. So what we might want to do is, if anybody, including you, Merle, have any questions you would like us to ask the airport, we can go ahead and do so. I think if we take a position that we don't meet with you unless it's the entire land use committee meeting, we won't have the meeting, it won't be productive, but we do find a better way to get other people's and yours concerns before the airport. So I think could take that approach before the next meeting and see if there are people have questions that they want us to pose to the airport. That's what I would suggest.
Okay, thank you, John. I appreciate that. I might just say, because there is a new director being hired or has already been hired. I mean, right, I'm sure maybe even Eric has some information he can provide about that. Hadn't been announced yet when we met with Terry back a couple of weeks ago, but we'll probably want to meet with the new director before the fall. It would be my guess, John. We'll see what that person's agenda and scheduling is like. He or she may not have time for us, but because there's a pretty significant transition, it's likely that we might reach out to them sometime this summer to try and meet with them again.
So my suggestion would be then that for the next meeting in June, if people have questions they would like to bring before the airport to make sure that we ask at these meetings, let's bring them up in June or get them to us in another way so we can make sure that we have those before us next time we meet. I think that's a reasonable solution.
Okay, thank you so much, John, and thank you, Merle. Okay, let's jump into reports. So let's see, Anna emailed me this afternoon. She is not able to attend this evening. She is presenting at a different community council meeting on this proposed home initiative that she's a co-sponsor of. So she wanted me to just bring up a couple of things. So I'll just go ahead and read these so I don't get anything mixed up here. So she said, we, as in the assembly, passed the FY24 revised operating budget first quarter revisions on Tuesday, this last Tuesday, which also sets the mill rates for tax levy. This is one of the last big steps in our budgeting process for the year and is necessary in order for the Muni to issue property tax bills, which pay for approximately 57% of our operating budget, and also very roughly half of our school district shared with state revenue. The budget also includes implementation of some bonds, not all the bonds passed a month ago. I think there were 2 of them that did not. So please do submit your priority. Oh, excuse me, not all the bands. So there is a lag time for implementation of projects, but it secures funding for those projects. And the second one she wanted to bring up was something that TCC and all the community councils were notified, and I brought it up at our last meeting, that it's the yearly community council capital improvement program project ranking process. So she just wanted to remind the councils that the deadline is June 16th, and that item is later on our agenda to form a ranking committee. So we're certainly we know about it. But she also wanted to express that assembly members have been talking a lot lately about how to improve the CIP ranking process, since, quote, we know it's a headache for CCs. But right now, there aren't any other avenues for public feedback. It all flows through community councils. So the department side of how projects are prioritized is a black box, etc. So it's too late to change anything this year, but the assembly is kind of has this on one of their front or back burners about something maybe changing the process, wanting public input about how things could be changed for maybe the 2025 process that we go through with CIPs. So that's what Anna wanted to share with the council this evening, and that is the assembly report. So let's see, moving on. And now we've already done legislative report. We don't have any other legislative members, I don't believe, at our meeting. So we will move on and go to mayor's report. And I don't see anyone from, oh yeah, I don't see anyone from the mayor's office. So now school board report, and I see that Dave Donnelly is with us. So welcome, Dave.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for inviting me. Well, the biggest thing facing the district right now is the outreach that the administration is doing, the superintendent is doing to the community regarding potential school closures. We have about a 70% occupancy rate, and among our schools that we have now, we've got about 90 schools. And if we could close 10 schools, that would bring our occupancy up into the mid 80s or so. There's a serious question about the ability to deliver full educational services to schools that are underutilized. So that's the idea is to go from the bottom up this time instead of the top down. You might remember last time the superintendent proposed 6 schools to close. This time they're going to go to the community and talk about it before they come up with a list. But the goal they've told us is 10 schools. Northwood was on the list last time. That's very close to the Turnigan Community Council. But I think that's the closest school that was on the list last time to this community council. There's the Academies of Anchorage is still moving forward full speed, which is really a great concept and idea. I'm really optimistic about it. So any of you that have a freshman coming into high school, this will be the first full 4 years of the Academy of Anchorage program. So they'll be enrolled. They have to choose a particular academy or class to be in during their freshman year, and then following the freshman year they'll get to elect stay in that class or choose a different one. And its focuses on career and where they might do once they graduate. It's been very successful in the other cities that have utilized it. We're continuing to face a massive deficit for next year, for which might remember the only way we filled the gap this year was with funds that were not used for positions that should have been staffed this year because of our inability to fill about 150 instructional jobs. And that fund went into the gap between the cost of running the school district at the level we currently are and the funding that was available. Total budget is in the $860 million range. 90 schools. We're down to about 42,700 kids from almost 50,000 6 or 7 years ago. If anybody's got any questions about any particular issues, and there's lots of them, before the board, should be happy to try to answer them.
Okay, well.
Oh, we did elect Andy Holloman as the president for this next year at our last meeting this week.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Dave? Did I see, I'm not looking at chat. I'm not monitoring chat, so I apologize. Did anybody have anything in the chat room for Dave?
Kathy, I raised
there.
a hand. And Lamar may have a hand up too.
Oh,
So I don't know.
excuse me,
Lamar?
I'm sorry. Lamar, please.
And
Yeah.
you're on mute. Lamar, you're on mute.
There we go. I assume you can hear it. Dave, you mentioned
Yes.
that there are possibly 10 schools that they'd look at to close. And when they say close, that means this coming fall?
No, it would be something that would happen. That would be a process that'd take at least a year. I mean,
Okay.
they haven't even identified what schools they might come forward to the board and propose to close yet. So once they come up with a list of schools, then I'm sure we'd be going out for hearings or open houses in each of those schools, just like we did with the 6 that they asked us to close last time they did this. So there'll be a lot more opportunity to identify and give input on specific schools once they have a list.
Okay, sort of a follow-up question. So is there a set list of I guess it'd be questions that are that I guess the board and others on how to determine which ones should stay and which ones need to be closed down?
Well, the district did hire an expert consultant because this is happening in school districts all over the country. And he used a matrix that had criteria such as, are there schools close by that are underpopulated that could absorb the population? Are there busing considerations, geographical, features, are there major roads that kids would have to cross that they don't currently have to cross? So yeah, there's a list of items like that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your work on this and your showing up tonight as well. So
Sure.
thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And John, did you have a question?
I did, but Dave answered my questions in responding to Lamar, so that's perfect.
Okay. I was thinking the same thing. If there's any matrix or criteria that you can kind of start plugging in before the emotional side of it starts and the public input, starts
Kathy,
to weigh
another
in
big
on it.
another big factor is how much deferred maintenance there is on a school. How much it's going to cost to keep that school open versus other schools that are newer.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yes, Merle, you have your hand raised?
Mr. Donnelly, tell me why we're closing the public schools. Why don't we close these other schools? We got various names for them, and close all these other schools and force the people back into the public schools. Thank you.
Well, we certainly can't close any private schools. So if you're talking when you say other schools, I'm guessing you mean charter schools. There's only one charter school that's now there's two. Yeah, there used to be only one that's operating in a city-owned facility, and actually the city owns all the schools. We only have them while we're using them for educational purposes. So if we stop using them for educational purposes, they go back to the city. There's only
How many
two
charter
schools. There's
How many
only two charter
schools
schools that are in ASD facilities, and it's Aquarian and the Alaska Native Cultural School, which moved into Abbott Loop, which the board voted to close last year because there's a state law that says if you close any school, any charter school in your district gets first call in it, gets to move into it. So there's actually a state law that prohibits what you're saying. If you're saying we should close down all the charter schools, I don't support that. That's a really bad idea. The charter schools are doing great. They're outperforming almost all the regular schools. Parents love them. They're making the effort to transport their kids there. They're a phenomenal asset to this community. So I'm certainly not going to advocate for closing down charter schools. Unlike other parts of the nation, charter schools here are all ASD schools. They're all public schools also. Most parts of the nation, a charter school is like a private school. Here, they're public schools.
And I disagree, so that's enough. Thank you. Bye.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Merle. Anybody else have any questions for Dave? If not, okay, I guess, when's the last day of school? I have to ask.
I don't know. I've lost track. My twins, I mean, they're so deep into sports right now. I'm more concerned about when the next track meet is and where it's going to be with the snow and everything. I know it's like in the next 3 weeks or so.
Okay, yeah, it's got to be coming up fairly quickly.
Let me look at my calendar. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Well, I don't want to give you the wrong information. So
No, that's fine. I just thought as a school board member, I thought you might know, but that's okay.
I usually would know that, but I got to tell you, just trying to keep up with the track meets has been overwhelming to me. They're moving around so much because of we had the dome and then all the snow on the fields, and then they just moved the one tomorrow from Diamond to Palmer on me. So.
Oh, gosh. Okay, well, thank you so much, Dave. Really, really appreciate you attending our meeting and providing a school board report for us.
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is the airport report, and we have Eric Peterson to provide that for us. Welcome, Eric.
Hello, everyone. I apologize for my voice right now. I've actually been sick this whole week, and it actually just came back even today. It's very low right now. But yeah, I don't have too much. The airport doesn't have too much going on right now. I just wanted to do a brief couple things. I mean, let's talk about the community outreach plan. So it is still going until May 15th. We're accumulating all of the different comments, all of the different input, and we would appreciate turning in community councils, but also any individual here. You are also allowed to submit comments as yourself. It doesn't have to just be the community council. And this plan kind of governs our relationship with the community. So anything from meetings with both TCC, the land use committee, or individual people, all of that can be covered in it. And it is coming at a good time, as you guys had brought up earlier. So Airport Director Craig Campbell, he is leaving. He's still technically going to be here for the entire month. And I mean, he was here today. He still kind of comes in and out. I haven't heard anything about a new airport director. We know that their interviews are happening, but I don't know anything more than that. We're hoping he comes soon, though. I would like to have a boss. But yeah, so we're hoping he comes soon. And I'll keep you guys up to date on that. And then yeah, the other things that I wanted to talk about was, so we have probably the only new public notice that I thought was probably most important to bring up to you guys. There are a lot of public notices right now, but most of them are just about like basically like I don't know, Princess Tours wants to rent another room to hold baggage, kind of stuff that's not really all that important. But there is one, the public notice for Alaska Cargo and Cold Storage, which is a large cargo development south of the current FedEx premises. Their environmental assessment and finding of no significant impact were both posted. And then I thought maybe this would be a good time if I could show you, if I could take over. I forget how to do this. Oh God, a bit
Well,
more.
screen share, yeah, feel free if you don't ask
Yeah,
me for help though.
I always forget how to do this. It's under apps. Um,
At the bottom, there is a share screen icon. I don't know if that would help. If you go down to the bottom of your screen, see it there. It's green and says share screen.
you are absolutely correct. Why am I so bad at this? All right. Desktop one share. Perfect. All right. Wait. Okay. Let's go down here. All right. Let's start with on our homepage. Ooh, that is very big. We are going to. All right. So on the front of our web page, we put all of our environmental assessments and all of our finding of no significant impacts right under news and highlights. So they're right here. They're very large files, but they're here for you to download. I've also been spearheading, and we've talked about before, just also to have more kind of like public communications about all of our construction. So if you go under, I think it's in the news, and there's construction updates website. So on this page, all of the environmental reviews, again, those EAs, the finding of no significant impact, they're always going to be here on this page, because on the news page, on the front page, they're just going to be up for like a couple months, but they'll always be here. And then under that, we have all of our construction maps of everything happening here, as well as downloadable PDFs with more information. So I just wanted to show you guys that those are all on there. And then let's go to the public notice page. No public notice. We'll just start with home. All right. So this is our Alaska public notice page, if this will actually go. All right. So all of our public notices are listed on here, and you can go by search notices. That's what I generally always start with. Oh, it saves your search history when you're going earlier. So whenever you hit search, it'll go onto here, and it's always going to show you the ones that are currently active. So because they stay active, generally they're 30 days if they're Alaska state ones. If they're federal, they'll stay up for 60 days. But you can always look up archived ones. I would say if you go pre like 2018, they start to become kind of iffy. But you can always search up any active or archived leases on here. So, and you can search for if you just want the airport, but if you're just looking for ones that are like Anchorage or anywhere, they're all over here. So, and this is always online. You can look up anything. So like we'll search. Oh no, we don't want to do archive. There'll be a lot of them. Active. So these are all the current active leases, right? So these are going to be up here for 30 to 60 days. The cargo and cold storage one is right here. And you can look up any of them. Generally, I tend to search them by these ADA numbers. So previously I'd kind of found, but you can look up like say, let's do K-Lot, because I know that that one's probably going to be. So if you want to look up an archived lease thing about the K-Lot. And it is annoying because you're searching for like a title or something like that. So you kind of have to know exactly what it's called, but you can search up more general terms and they'll tend to pop up. There you go. there's a K-lot lease, and also, so you see that number right there, the ADA number? Take this, copy, search again. Doop. There's all of its historical leases all the way back down to 2022. So this is just kind of online way to search up any of our historical leases, any of our current leases. You can also find the environmental assessments. And then if you have any questions about that, I'm here to answer. And then I wanted to bring up this one. And I had just wondered because
Yeah,
the elastic.
Sorry, Eric, I'm gonna jump in before you
Yeah.
before we move on. One of the things that it was kind of convenient to meet in Terry's office versus in a conference room because we started talking about the K-lot and application said, you know, yes, it had been approved. And she printed out the 30-some pages, a copy for John Lamar and myself to take home. I have to admit, I haven't perused through it since our meeting, but so I mean, she was able to provide that whole document, the application approval, or, you know. And so is that document on this website that if anybody else wanted to go through, you know, a packet of information once the lease?
Yeah. Let's see. So some of them will actually have the whole public notice final. No, this isn't going to have the whole thing. That is actually something I can ask because the actual like signed lease at the end of it, I haven't seen them either. I've just never seen them. I don't know where they're actually held. I know that these notice leases right here are all online. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe Sarah knows where they would be if they're online somewhere.
Sarah, do you know?
Can't I do. So
Oh,
Pardon
Sarah,
me.
we can't hear you.
You're kind of breaking up, Sarah. We're not hearing you. Can you hear us?
how's that? Is that better?
Yes, you're frozen.
Oh,
You're
okay.
frozen, but we can hear your voice.
Oh, interesting. It's just the Wi-Fi, I guess. Yeah, so those of you, I think most of you know, but I've been working at the airport now for a couple of years. And a year ago, I took over the leasing department. So all of the things that we've been talking about, they all come out of my team. And, you know, I sit in on these community council meetings as a neighbor and a member of the public like I have for the last 6 years. But it's really hard for me to sit here and not want to chime in, especially when there's maybe false narratives running around about maybe airport processes or you know, the relationship between the airport and the community. So we'll talk about that another time. But on that one, Eric, if you scroll down, the attachments are what the public notice and the exhibit.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's
the
yeah.
sample lease on this one would have been sent out when the bid went out. So this particular one had to go out for what they call an invitation to bid. And the reason it went out to bid was, yep, if you have it there, if you pull that up, if you scroll down, should be a sample land lease.
Oh, perfect. So this one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this
So
is the whole thing. There you go.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. But of course, because that was for the bid, that won't have the name of the person who won the bid. So if you want to see a actual executed agreement with the terms that were decided upon and the name of the person who won it, you would just reach out to the leasing office. We don't necessarily make the public go through like a formal FOIA or public records request. If you just want a copy of a PDF, if you just want to reach out to the name of the person on the public notice, or you can reach out to me. I'll put you in contact. We have the department separated between land and terminal and concessions and then permitting. So you kind of have like, you should have a point of contact if you're interested specifically in land or Lake Hood. Yeah, and we can get you an executed copy. It might take us a couple days only because we're busy. This is probably a department that should have, you know, 10 people and we have 5. Welcome to government work. And so we do our best to get back to you guys in a timely manner. But so Kathy, you guys got an executed copy of the lease or did you just get the sample?
I'm looking up, that's not it. I know I saw it earlier today in all my paperwork. John, I know you got a copy, and Lamar, do you guys have your hands on that real quick? Hmm.
Mine's in another room.
Yeah.
But it was specific to the K-lot. It wasn't a sample.
Sure,
Because
I assume, yeah,
Yeah.
it was executed probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now, so that would have been available. The beauty of working with the state is all of this is open to every member of the public. We can't hold anything. I could even send you guys financials. You ask for it, you probably will get it. And so if you need something, let us know. There it is.
I
So
know
you
it's
should.
backwards, but yeah. So this
Okay.
is the K-lot. And
Yep.
it's page at 46 pages.
Yep.
So Terry did print that out for us just since she was in front of her computer rather than in a conference room, and she printed it out for us. So because we were starting to ask specific questions about the K-lot lease. So
Perfect.
she did provide that for us.
Yeah, any other questions? I'll drop my work email in the chat, but and then if Eric,
You can
if you
also
still
you
have
can always email me.
what's that?
They can always email me too.
Yeah, Eric is great. It helps us if Eric gets involved too, and then we kind of know what the pulse is of what people want to see. But you have a new generation of people working at the airport. You have kind of a new sheriffs in town, and we're really trying to be good neighbors. And if you guys need something, we're trying to get you there. And then our website needs a lot of work, and Eric is going to get us there. So Eric, could you pull up the leasing website for me? I'm on my phone, so I can't do it. But if you just go to the general website for the airport, we have a whole tab, it's leasing and property management.
Mhm.
Oh, there I am.
There you are.
There's public notices right there.
Yep, and a link to the public notices, which already has the filter. So those of you who like efficiency, if you click on that, it should be filtered already to the active Ted Stevens public notices.
Mhm.
And of
Yep.
course, it's always been touted during airport reports by various people that, people can sign up to receive all these notices.
Oh yeah, Gov Delivery. I make all those
Yes.
emails. Sign up for
Yes.
them.
There you
Yep.
go.
Now,
Wonderful.
I do want to say, the Gov delivery is according to our communications plan, it's just the land leases. We don't do Gov delivery for terminal or concessions. We typically don't get a lot of public interest on there when we have, say, an RFP or a new concession or somebody renting a storage space. So the list that's on the screen right now that Eric is showing is going to be a lot longer, and there's going to be more items there than what would be pushed to your email. But at the bottom of this website, Eric, there's an RSS feed thing that you can sign up for. I'm sorry, I'm on my mobile. Search, there it is, subscribe. I do warn you, if you subscribe to this, you will get everything for Ted Stevens. There's no way to filter out just leases. You're going to get all the construction stuff and all the RFPs for construction projects. But if you're okay with that, you can filter it so that you just get one email a week instead of an email every day. But there's some tools in here to help you get notified, so you don't have to check every so often, which is nice.
Okay,
Good.
well, I appreciate
Yeah.
that, because for those who want to delve into this in a deeper level, now we know how to do that. But I find it so convenient, since my, focus, county council's focus right now is land leases, and so they're automatically sent when they go out. But when we start talking about our communications outreach down on the agenda, there's some requests that we have that would even enhance the notification process, but we're not going to dive into that right now. Later on.
Perfect. Hey,
Right.
thank you for letting me speak onto it. And if you guys need anything from airport or leasing, let me know.
Okay, many thanks, Sarah. And then Eric, you wanted to move on to
Yeah, I just
something.
had a couple more things. Oh, but Mr. Lamar, did you have a question? You kind of look like you had a question.
Well, quick, maybe it's for a later time, but I have a copy of the document we're talking about, the K-lot, but is there a way that somebody could send it to me as a file?
Oh, let me put that in my notes, Lamar.
36
Well, let me put it in my notes. I can send it to you, Mr. Lamar.
Thank you very much.
I'll
Appreciate
need to
it.
get your, I'll do my little presentation, then I'll get your email address. Lamar. All right. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about before we move on to, I guess, more fun things was, so the environmental assessment and finding of no significant impact for the Alaska cargo and cold storage has been put out. It was emailed out, it's here. But I'm just wondering, because I've also only worked at the airport for a couple months, the original lease for Alaska cargo and cold storage was back in 2022. Turnagain Community Council submitted comments, but did anybody want me to talk about it? This is a map basically of what they're proposing, by the way.
Well, the reason it's also under old and new business and the reason why the board decided to, put it on the agenda, but we're really kind of melding because we don't have to have it as a separate item, but we want to make sure that it was announced that the environmental assessment that Turnagain Community Council presented comments on, yeah. it didn't go far enough to address some of the things that we commented on the Alaska cargo and cold storage, like the cumulative effects. I mean, this is all on Class A wetlands, and between that and the FedEx expansion, it's pretty well going to annihilate the rest of that area. And, it's just going to be adding new noises, new, emissions, everything that impacts the West Turnagain area. And it was unfortunate that John gave me a good link to just kind of scan that. So I did this afternoon, and the response to our comments, I didn't feel like they really touched on the essence of what we were trying to get at in terms of addressing the impacts. And so it was kind of a disappointment, but just wanted to report on that, there was a finding of no significance, and they used flat bog mitigation, wetland credits for the wetland permit. And we were hoping that they would do on-site Turnagain bog, preserve Turnagain bog, some of Turnagain bog as mitigation, and that was rejected by the Corps. So just wanted to mention that. So, it kind of bleeds into our old and new business on that particular topic. So, but the deadline to comment on their lease extension, board and we decided not to go ahead and even provide any comments on that. We don't,
Okay.
So, don't expect any last minute comments from Turnagain Community Council on that.
Okay. And John,
Did
did you have
anybody else have anybody they want to ask Eric about on anything, but especially the Alaska cargo and cold storage findings?
So Kathy, I did have my hand up, but
Oh, sorry.
but that's okay, but I can wait.
Sharing, I can't see everybody.
The
So
question is, do we want to continue talking about this or wait till we get to old and new business and bring it up again? What's your preference?
well, did you have anything else, Eric, or can we just go ahead and dive
Oh.
into this particular topic?
Yeah, the only other one was my I have so many tabs now. Was I was gonna just kind of note, I put these airport monthly updates to the community on our website as well. They're always here to read. And I guess they're on more fun things after this public notice. But the only things I wanted to note was that our airfield maintenance team won the Balkan Post Award, which is basically it's a global kind of award for basically snow clearing in airfields. We won it for the third year in a row for like a North American airport, we're very happy for our airfield maintenance team. And then we officially signed Sweet Caribou. So Sweet Caribou is going to be moving into the airport. It's where the old cream ice cream shop was, right next to 49th State Brewery. And so yeah, so we're really excited to have them. And I guess everything was, oh, and then we just recently had the honor flight. There was a lot of news media about it. But it's basically a flight to bring veterans from Alaska to Washington, D.C. They get to go to various events as well, see war memorials, and they come back and then they actually do a celebration inside of the airport. So we put together a whole little thing for all the veterans. But yeah, those were my other three things.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. Does anybody have any like non-Alaska cargo and cold storage questions for Eric or anything they want to add? If not, then we'll go ahead and go into old and new business. And since we've already kind of started talking about Alaska cargo and cold storage, John, if you want to just go ahead and add to any other comments on that.
So I did go through it, and I guess there's a couple things to look at. One is there was a section in the document which is environmental commitments, and they have committed to with under hazardous materials, if excess soils are generated that require treatment or disposal, coordination with Department of Environmental Conservation will be required prior to treatment or disposal, and that they will be having a dewatering plan that will require also Department of Environmental Conservation approved treatment plan prior to dewatering. They talk about the compensatory mitigation for wetlands, and there is Appendix E, which is both the environmental assessment prepared by the Corps for this and the response to comments, including Kathy's. And I kind of basically said that as far as mitigation for this project goes, they're continuing to use available mitigation credits in Clat Bog, which is part of an earlier wetlands EA that was done. So they are using Clat Bog, and they declined to consider using mitigation within Kernighan Bog. One of the things they said, that if someone had brought that up, they would have considered it. But for some reason, even though Kathy brought it up, they don't consider it. But we might want to go back and relook at that. There are a number of additional things in there that they may consider in terms of noise design and noise abatement, things along those lines. They did make a commitment that there will be no construction traffic really generated, and if any is, including construction, it will use the International Airport Road and not Northern Lights. So that was one concession. But other than that, there are an awful lot of things they said they may consider and they may do, but not firm commitments.
Yeah, so I think maybe and again, this could dovetail into when we talk about the airport outreach plan, that we go ahead and meet with Alaska Cargo and Cold Storage whenever we have a chance, ask for a meeting to kind of further our discussion, because we, Dan and John and myself, we attended their open house and went board to board and easel to easel and expressed a lot of things. And they had, a preliminary design of what they were going to do and where they were going to locate things. And we gave some comments to them on that. And I don't know, what's happened to that as far as some of our input that we gave that night or that evening. And so it might behoove us to try and coordinate with the airport to set up a meeting with that leaseholder once dust settles. It sounds like they're not ready to have the bulldozers rolling yet, because here they're asking for an extension of their lease. So that would be my input on if we want to follow up on this with them.
And I can always forward that request to ACCS to meet with TCC if you'd like.
Oh, well, that would be wonderful. Just because it does seem to help to be able to have a lot of one-on-one dialogue instead of just submitting a something on paper and then we never know what happens after that. So that would be great, Eric. I would appreciate that. Does anybody else want to weigh in on the Alaska cargo and cold storage final environmental assessment and their findings that there's no significant impact as far as this development will have on anybody.
Does anybody want to know what it's about? What they're trying to do?
Well, go ahead and give a brief summary. I mean, we've talked about this now, more than once at our council meeting and approved the comments that I submitted
Yeah.
on behalf of the council, but go ahead just briefly and then we'll go ahead and move on.
Sure. ACCS is kind of fulfilling something that the airport and I guess the wider state of Alaska has always wanted, which is that all of our cargo planes, basically, when they're coming from Asia and going to North America, they're full of goods. But generally speaking, when they're going from North America back to Asia, they're empty, right? It's mostly we're buying stuff from Asia. It's get offloaded here. The plane turns around, goes back empty. The state of Alaska would like to add value to these flights by basically putting on, it could be technically anything, but it's going to be seafood probably. But in order to actually put seafood on these planes going back to Asia, we need cold storage, right? You have to actually freeze the crab and the salmon and that kind of stuff. So what this cargo and cold storage is doing is it's 8 hard stands, which is basically just a way to say that they're parking spots for planes. The planes would pull up, they would park, we'd fill them full of Alaska salmon, and then they fly over to Asia where they can get a huge amount of money for this salmon. And it's just really because we want to try to add more value to basically the Anchorage airport. So instead of just being a refueling stop for these cargo planes, to really get them to bring more economic activity to the state of Alaska and really to help with like the fishing industry and that kind of stuff here in the state of Alaska. So that's what the ACCS basically is.
Thanks, Eric. Do they already have, that's just kind of a vision. There's nothing, contracts or anything set up at this point.
No, that's the vision. That's the vision. I don't
Premature.
think they have any contracts until they start breaking ground or anything like that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and thank you so much for jumping in. Thank you, Sarah. And the next item on the agenda is also, airport related. So we'll dive into that. So to give a background, when Matt Clayman was acting mayor back, not sure what the year was, but the 3 West Community Councils, Turnagain, Spenard, and Sand Lake, were pretty frustrated with the airport in terms of communications and felt like there was a need. So, we reached our assembly person who then was an acting mayor, and we collaborated with the airport and the 3 community councils to come up with it was called an airport communications plan, and worked really hard on it. There were two representatives from each council, and I was one of the Turnagain ones. Brett Tosteman was the president back then, and he was the other one, president and vice president. So we felt like we had really gone a long way from a lot of miscommunication or lack of communication to come up with kind of a framework on how we could move forward. And so it's kind of broken down so it was drafted and started using it, and it's broken down essentially into 2 things, like what's the airport commitment to the public and to community councils in particular, and what are the community councils commitment to the airport, like the airport report that gets produced by the communications person, in this case Eric. We're committed to sending that out with our meeting notice every month. That's just an example of what we've committed to do. And in that document was a caveat that it be reviewed every 2 years, to see if we want to make any changes, adjustments, and so forth. And the airport has taken the lead on that. And so we've weighed in pretty much every 2 years and have asked for things. Sometimes it gets put in, sometimes it doesn't. But in 2020, the call went out in 2022, the call went out to, hey, it's time to look at the 2020 version. And so the community council went through a process via a land use plan with regard to a land use meeting, with regard to things that we, over time have seen we'd like to see improved. And some of them were previous requests that weren't implemented in the plan by the airport. And so in April 7th of 2022, we did already approve some comments and recommended amendments. But for some reason, the airport itself didn't ever go through that process to put out a 2022 version of this document. So, you know, we've already seen what's in the 2020 that we wanted improvement in 2022. And, you know, there's multiple things that was attached to the meeting notice. It runs 4 pages. And so I reviewed it to see if we want to add any, because these have already been submitted. I mean, we can resubmit them, but we've already approved them and have already submitted them 2 years ago. But there was one thing that I identified that would be a good addition that we could submit as something new for the review of the 2022 plan in the 2024 timeframe. And for, I don't know if, John, can you screen share this document by chance that was sent out? And it's a highlighted part on page 2, and it's based on our, I thought of it based on our dialogue about the K-Lot lease and development proposal and discussion with Terry Linseth a couple of weeks ago, and realized, oh, that would be another good thing to have in this document, in addition to the other numerous things we asked for in 2022 that just never got looked at and inputted or considered. So, John, can you bring that up? It'd be easier visually, I think. Yes, thank you. So again, this is embedded in the document that we already approved, April 7th, 2022. But the highlighted is an addition because, and it's based on what our questions about the K-Lot is, we're asking Terry, okay, now that you've approved the lease, I mean, what have they indicated where they're going to locate this and how far away are they going to do that? And where's this buffer of trees they're talking about? And Terry said, well, we haven't seen anything. We have not seen a detailed site plan. And she explained, when the lease application goes out, there's usually someone who specifically has asked for a lease. And so it's got to go through the process of an application and public notice. And then there's a comment period, and Turnagain Community Council, decides if we want to submit comments, and we go through that evaluation. But there's not very many specifics. And of course, Terry said, no, there isn't at that point in the process, because they're not going to spend a ton of money on detailed site plans and everything else, just in case they don't get the lease approved. It's only after they're notified that the lease is approved that then they start going into, of course, more of their detail. Now they have the incentive to go ahead and get a lot more detail. And so she said, really, then that's when the community council should be able to meet again once the applicant has been notified they've received the lease and they've started working on more detail on their site plan. And so in 2022, there was kind of a revision about the airport will require that applicants for land leases include development and operations that may have, that they meet with the Associated Community Council or councils to get input. And that's before we would submit comments on the lease application. But based on the discussion with Terry, I felt like it was probably a good idea to ask now for an additional amendment that would state, quote, as a condition of a lease application approval, the airport will require that an appropriate time after it has approved a lease application, the leaseholder again meets with community council or councils so that the councils are presented with a much more detailed development plan. This meeting shall occur within a reasonable amount of time after the lease application has been approved to ensure the councils have adequate time to provide additional input on the development proposal. So that's the part that I'd appreciate somebody moving, and then we can discuss to see if we want that additional amendment submitted along with the ones we'll resubmit that we already approved in 2022.
So Kathy, I guess a question, the entire document that's on screen right now, is it our 2022 comments plus the proposed additions?
Yes, I mean, everything that's in that document, I had Jean send out just the documents that we approved, our comments and recommended amendments that we already submitted in 2022. And then I took the liberty to go ahead and take this document and embed where this one amendment that is a new one that we can consider approving this
So
evening.
my suggestion, and maybe it doesn't completely comport with Robert's Rules of Order, is that noting that this was attached to the agenda and people have at least had a little bit of time to read it, that we maybe approve it as it is amended and not have to worry about approve first, amend later. Do you see a problem with just moving to approve the document that's on the screen as amended that was passed out to everyone?
I think that makes perfect sense, John.
Okay, so I would so move that we approve submitting the document as is on screen as Kathy has described, noting that 90% of it is what we submitted before formally in 2022, and she's added a new amendment, which is in yellow.
Okay, thank you, John. Could I get a second? Anybody want to second that motion, please?
I'll second. This is Kathleen.
Thank you, Kathleen. I appreciate it. Okay, so I think we've kind of already discussed it. So does anybody have any questions with regard to that secondary step that not only is the applicant, the airport is requiring the applicant to contact the appropriate council or councils to present what they are proposing within a lease application. But then also subsequently, if the airport does approve that lease, then that leaseholder would also be required, as per this plan, that they come back to that council and say, well, now that the lease is approved, let us show you our site plan. Let us show how the roads are going to be, in and out, the traffic flow, how much buffering and how many trees they're planting, that whole thing, that we get a lot more detail so that we can provide additional input and have additional dialogue with the leaseholder, leaseholder. So does anybody have any questions? Or I've got a thumbs up from Eric. So thank you, Eric. Kathleen.
I thought we were voting.
Oh,
Take my
no,
hand down.
now we're discussing. Does anybody have any further discussion on this, or should we go ahead and vote? Sounds like nobody's got any other. Okay, so all in favor of what we just discussed and John's motion, please raise your hand either through the reactions or raise it physically there. I don't even have okay, raise hand. All right. And I'd appreciate it if I can have some help on voting. So
Keep your hand up, Lamar.
Yeah, don't remove your hand yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Dan, are you voting? Are you there? Are you voting?
Yes.
Oh, there
Yes.
you are. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think I've got 9, yes. And is anybody opposed to the motion? So everybody that voted yes, please lower your hands. So Leslie, did you vote yes or are you voting no? Okay, so no objection?
I voted yes.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Okay, so that passes unanimously. Or with no objection, I should say. So thank you very much, and thank you again, Eric and Sarah, and so we'll be submitting what we just passed, and then hopefully we'll get some feedback. I don't know if other councils are gonna submit any, I haven't been in touch with any of them, but at least you're hearing from Turnigan on this every 2-year process. Okay, let's see, the next one is a Lois Drive reconstruction brief update. And who is here to provide some information on that? Matt Edge.
Hi, Kathy.
Hey,
My
Matt,
name is,
gosh, it's been a while. Okay, well, welcome.
Yeah, I'm not here for Fish Creek Trail. I'm sorry. I hope to be here soon, but not tonight.
Yeah, we'll want to
Um,
dialogue with you on that coming up in the not too distant future, but not on our agenda tonight, except for kind of just under land use report. But okay, well,
Yeah.
Matt, go ahead. You have the floor. Please give us a
All right,
rundown.
for everybody else, I'm Matt Edge with the CRW Engineering Group. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen really quick. Let's try that. What does everybody see?
Not yet. Don't see anything yet on me anyway.
How's that?
Starting,
yeah.
yep, there you go.
Okay,
Yes,
That's
thank
good.
you.
this project is technically not within the Turnigan Community Council. It's within Spinard Community Council, but it's close by and affects folks coming in and out on Northern Lights Boulevard. So wanted to make sure everybody's aware. 2019, this project came out, and we started work on a design study report that included Lois Drive and West 32nd Avenue. That design study report recommended some improvements, including a roundabout here at the intersection of West 32nd and Lois Avenue, and was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission in 2021. So since then, the municipality went out and started looking for funding. They ended up finding that use of the AMATS funding would be best for the 32nd Avenue portion of the project. So this section, so then they broke the project up into two different projects essentially. So this Lois Drive segment from Benson Boulevard down to 32nd Avenue will be a municipal bond project, and the road project from on West 32nd Avenue from Lois Drive to Minnesota Drive will be an AMATS project, so it'll be done through DOT and federal dollars. So just now, I just want to let everybody know we're kicking back up for design. As you can see here in the cross section, the Lois Drive right now, anyways, it's just a strip paved road. It has a pathway on portions of the road right now. It's overgrown, but it doesn't connect all the way to Benson Boulevard, and it's a real high priority to get pedestrian improvements by the Turnigan Community Council. So the new proposed road section will have sidewalk on one side, pathway on the other side, lighting and drainage improvements. As I said, we're just kicking off the design, so we're really just out there surveying, collecting information, doing a geotech investigation where we drill through the road and collect subsurface information about the soils, and then we'll start pulling together design documents. And then at the 65% design, we'll have another public open house for folks to come in and take a look at things and provide comment on it. We do have a fact sheet and flyers that went out just to the area residents earlier today. Actually, they were mailed out and emailed out as well. We have a new website that is essentially the old website with a new name, because we didn't want anybody confused that it still had 32nd Avenue in there. So it's the www.loisdrivereconstruction.com. And if you click on it, it'll take you right to all the project information. And it has all the old information too, as far as with up in the documents and resources tab, you can go find the old design study report. and all the old alternatives for both Lois Drive and 32nd Avenue if you're interested. With that, I will open it up to any questions anybody might have.
Okay, let's see. Does anybody have any questions? Shout out if you do.
Kathy, Marnie and I
Yes.
do have some questions.
Yes, go ahead.
You want to start?
Yeah, I'm just curious there, Matt, is the roundabout still in the plan?
No, not now, no, because our improvement our improvements now are just restricted to Lois Drive. And so the intersection will come in at a little bit of a skewed angle at 32nd Avenue, but we can't do a roundabout without getting into 32nd Avenue and expanding the limits beyond what's in the current scope. So our goal here is to create a functional intersection that's still safe, but not inhibit and construct too much that's just going to be wasted when the 32nd Avenue project comes in.
And do you happen to know what the traffic count is there on Lois?
It's, boy, it's in this, I'm going to tell you the wrong number, but I believe it's about 600 each direction, so a little over 1,000 vehicles per day. So,
Wow.
But it is a classified collector roadway.
Okay.
And I can get you the actual number. In fact, it is in the design study report that is on here. So I may be misremembering. I've got, well, 4 or 5 road projects, so I get them mixed up. So
Yeah, that's fair.
Um,
That does sound low.
yeah,
So I had
a lot of that I think is driven
questions.
by the Aquarian Charter School traffic too, which varies depending on the time of year.
Right, thanks.
I don't know if you could provide the link to that in the chat. That would be great. I have a couple questions. Lois is probably pretty narrow, and your working space, with houses and things like that is probably limited. And it sounds like you're looking at a sidewalk on one side and a pathway on the other, which I'm assuming would be perhaps a bike pathway.
Yes.
And what are you looking at the width of your traffic lanes, and what's the width of your pathway?
So, okay, so first, Lois Drive actually has 5 more feet of right-of-way than most roads do, so 65 feet as opposed to 60 feet of right-of-way. So that is actually kind of nice for me because I'm used to even narrower. This segment of Lois Drive is 65 feet. Part of our challenges are when you get beyond 32nd Avenue or even west of Lois on 32nd Avenue, the right-of-way goes to 30 feet. So it's very difficult to do anything in those corridors, but that's beyond our limits. So our lane width, I'm zooming in here. So this is, can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So that drive lanes are 10 feet wide with a 3.5 foot shoulder. That is not a striped shoulder, so there will be a yellow centerline stripe in the middle of the road, but there will not be a white stripe between the drive lane and the shoulder. So you will, to people who are on the a road, it will feel like a little bit of a wider drive lane. Then the curb and gutter is 2 feet wide. There's a 5-foot snow storage buffer, and then a 10-foot pathway on one side, same 5-foot buffer on the other side, and a 6-foot sidewalk. So that gives us 2 feet of separation to the edge of the right of way on one side. And I think it's 5 feet. I need to add all this up, but there's a little bit more on this other side where the light poles are going to go.
Perfect, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have questions for Matt? I've got a question or a comment question. I drove this, once Holly contacted me and said, hey, can we be on this evening's agenda? And I said, sure. And so when I was just coming out from being out and about, I decided to take a drive down Lois because it's not something I go through very often. And I was shocked how narrow the road that you see is, that paved asphalt pathway, you might say. And then there's tons of trees, tons of vegetation, or people's yards seem to kind of go right up to the edge of the existing pavement. There's I didn't even realize there was a sidewalk. I didn't even notice. So I guess I wasn't very observant that there's something along part of it now. But I personally didn't notice any kind of, very obvious sidewalk or bike path or anything like that. And, obviously no curb and gutter drainage, anything. And it reminded me a lot of Turnigan Street, which is within our boundaries. And the issues we've had with that to get some kind of improvements because, the planning department or traffic has just said it's too narrow. We can't do it. We can't do what you're showing on your screen right now for Turnigan Street, but Lois looked like it was kind of in the same situation, but you're saying there's a 65-foot right of way. So I'm kind of confused. I mean, have you had a lot of interaction with neighbors and property owners up and down Lois and what their take on this is?
So yeah, back in 2019, we had a concept report that was prepared for the project when it included 32nd Avenue at the Aquarian Charter School. We had really good attendance in that. And everybody was very supportive of it. We've presented to the Turnigan Community Council, they're supportive of it. In 2020, that was COVID hit, and we had one of our early online public open houses. So, and that was attended only by a few residents, but there was really nobody who was against the project. And then the planning and zoning commissions, meetings with the DSRs are open to the public as well. So I have not heard, and now I'm going to knock on wood here because I'm going to open a can of worms, but I have not heard anybody who's not in favor of the improvements. Now I'm sure I will hear plenty of folks now, but so far it's been very positive as far as community input. And we have engaged people along Lois Drive. I know there's a couple folks that are, or at least one person in particular who's concerned about the location of a hydrant, wants us to move that out of her driveway. A couple other folks are really excited about the lighting because there's been some issues with theft in those apartment complexes that were, that are on the north east side kind of the project corridor. So generally I think that yeah, what I've heard anyways, folks are in favor of the project.
Okay, I appreciate that. If they're supportive of it, then that's the main thing. That's how we've had to deal or not deal with Turnigan Street is it looks like the same kind of street, but the right of way seems to be significantly different. So
I don't know what the right of way width on Turnigan Boulevard or
well,
Turnigan
it
Street.
varies, but it's as little as 25 feet in some places.
Yeah, that's really hard to do much without going and taking property from somebody. It's hard to build anything in that narrow of a section.
So is
But
there
I
any
have
landscaping involved
rumblings.
with this since it would appear, and you can confirm or not, you're going to be mowing down a ton of trees.
The ones near on the southern end of the section, there'll be some of those are coming out. We do have a landscape architect on board to put back vegetation and landscaping. That is really early. We're way early in the design for anything on exactly what would get put back in the right of way. So that's definitely open to input. We'd love to have folks provide input on things like that.
Okay, well, thank you. Anybody else have anything for Matt? Thank you for reaching out to us. Yeah, this area used to be part of Turnigan Community Council boundaries until they got changed about 10 years ago. So,
Okay.
so I appreciate that.
No problem. All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, next on the agenda is we also had a request from David Darrington. I believe you're here somewhere. There you are. To provide an update on the Forest Park Drive surface rehabilitation project that, as everybody who's long-term council members know, this has been on our radar screen for a long, long time. And thank you to Marnie and John, but especially Marnie, for really taking the lead on this to get us where we need to be on this project.
Can everybody see my screen? And
Yes.
is it a cross section or is it the background? Because I'm seeing something odd on mine.
Cross section.
Cross section.
Okay, good. I was seeing the my desktop background, and that wasn't what I was hoping to share with you. So I appreciate being able to join you and share a little bit about what's going on with Forest Park. So a little bit of background on this project. Sounds like you probably already know, but figured I'd give a recap for those that don't. So this project came to the municipality. Initially, it was a resident or a couple residents that raised concerns and got it onto the road bond package. I think the 2023 ARTSA road bond, and it was voted and approved. So I've been involved with at least one other project in this area, and in this project, the goal here is to resurface the roadway and to provide some additional space for what we're calling now as vulnerable users, pedestrians, bicyclists. It goes into other categories as well, but for Forest Park, it's primarily those two. With the amount of traffic, both foot and vehicle coming back and forth between the schools there, it's definitely warranted. It's been warranted for several years, in my opinion. So I work for HDL Engineering, and we were contracted by the municipality, PM&E, to look at different alternatives and then move forward. It's not a huge scope or budget for it. The bond was for 600,000, so we're focused mainly on those alternatives to improve the road surface and restripe. So we provided what we call a DSM, a design study memorandum, a shortened version of a report to stakeholders, including your community council, and we've received your feedback, and we greatly appreciate your comments. And have chosen to move forward with what we were calling alternative 3, which is to have two 10-foot vehicle travel lanes and then 5-foot shoulders on either side. Shoulders or bike lanes, we're still working through and doing our research on whether we annotate those or mark them as official bike lanes, because without having any sidewalks, we're also wanting pedestrians to be able to utilize those. In the municipal code allows pedestrians to use bike facilities, but there's still an education process out there. Not all bicyclists believe that pedestrians can use their facility. So, and by marking it, sometimes it raises some of those arguments that aren't needed. So we're still looking into, as far as the design goes, whether or not we mark that. But that's kind of where we're at. We've submitted, or we've drafted a design memo with our alternatives. We've received feedback, and now we're moving forward with this alternative 3 to restripe things and narrow down the roadway. So, and right now we'll probably continue this design through this summer, and then should be ready for construction early 2025 is currently the plan. And I'll skip through some of our kind of design level, or early design level plans. Whenever you touch the walkway or the perceived walkway between ADA facilities, we need to bring those up to code. And both of those curb ramps currently on La Honda Drive are not ADA compliant, so those will need to be brought up. We will bring all the signs up to we'll replace the old signs, basically. So anything past 10 years, we like to replace. They lose their retro reflectivity and start losing their effectiveness. The plan currently isn't to install any new signs. That will change if we do decide to annotate or mark the bike path. There are some signs that will need to go in with that. We are looking at replacing the guardrail there at the south end of the project as well. That's older guardrail that doesn't meet current standards. Going the wrong way. So moving on up, skip a few to the Arcadia Drive area. There's part of this project was getting inspecting the pipes and ensuring that they're in good condition. We don't want to invest and put good material under something that will, or over something that might fail later. So we did inspect the storm drain throughout the project, and this outlet to Fish Creek, and then this lane or this section here up at Esquire are in really poor condition. So those will definitely get replaced with this project. These two sections that are also shown here, we're considering whether or not we replace those. They are in fair condition, and we're determining whether they can last for the duration of the service life of the project. So it kind of comes to the overall cost of the project and whether we can fit those in or not. But that's kind of the plan there. And then as you move forward and north through the project, it's just kind of the similar, replacing the striping, replacing the signing, all the way to the Highlands and Hillcrest intersection. So that's kind of where we're at in a nutshell. I know I cruised through that pretty quick. Here are the contacts for those that are leading this project and our project team. Melinda at MOA is our project manager. Brooke Blessing is the project administrator. Stephanie Momillo is our HDL project manager, and then I'm the engineer on the project. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Like I said, I know I breezed through that pretty quick. And if you don't have any questions now, but questions hit you later, you're welcome to call or email any one of us, and we can respond.
Okay, thank you so much, David. Really appreciate that. We're kind of getting crunched on time here, but does anybody have any specific questions? Steve, I see your hand is up, and Marnie, then Marnie.
Well, David, so using that trail on bike and foot a lot, on the south end of that, the southwest part of that, it seems like the parking and the shoulder drops off fairly quickly, and you wouldn't be able to do a 5 foot on there. So I don't know. It seems like it would be kind of trouble to fix that, but I'm not sure. What you're showing up here would be just a little bit north of there to the right of the picture. But there's a lot of, it just drops off pretty dramatically. So I just didn't know what yeah, there you go. That's a better picture of it.
So right in this area is what you're talking about?
Yeah, right on the west side. So it would be, yeah. Right there. Yeah.
So we did several field measurements through here, and it looks like the current striping situation there varies slightly, and we can fit that 30-foot footprint in that section currently. So as shown in that cross section.
Yeah. It seems like it drops off pretty quick, so I can understand that you might have that that size, that 5 feet, but I'm not sure how it just doesn't seem like it'd be a good fit right there. And I don't know if that would be, you'd have to build up that pavement or what the plans are for that.
Yeah, the other thing that's happened out there quite a bit is where we don't have curb and gutter, the existing or the embankment next to it, the yards have encroached on over the pavement. So there is some of that as well. So Yeah, we've looked at it and we're pretty certain that we can get that bike lane area or that or that 5-foot shoulder through that section.
Okay, Marnie.
Yeah, hi, David. Welcome. Thanks for all your good work and kudos to PM&E and HDL for doing all that good pre-design work. A couple of things I wanted to run by you if I could. When we worked on the petition from the neighborhood to submit to TCC, it was near 100% support, but there were, as I was taking it around, there were a couple of consistent comments which I didn't put into the petition, but I'm wondering now if I could mention it. Some of the frequent suggestions for the new shoulders particularly is the concern that it becomes a parking deal. And we're wondering if there's a possibility of painting that a dark green or something, you know, to really distinguish that it is not part of the road, it's a shoulder, and put the bike symbol on it that you mentioned. You know, occasional parking would be fine, but we have had issues on this. And the other was the suggestion that we know speed humps are sort of out of favor, but maybe a speed ramp or two could fit in. We put a lot of effort into slowing down the traffic and generally have had success, but there was interest in speed ramps.
Yeah, the speed hump or speed cushion thing, your comment is the first I've heard of it this go around.
Yeah.
As far as your other comments,
Painting the court,
yeah, painting it. Anchorage hasn't, maybe Spinard's different. I don't think we've used that green paint. It's common in other bigger cities. I know you see it in Portland a lot. And it's not something we've used up here yet that I'm aware of. That being said, since it would be something new, it usually is a little bit more on the spendier side. Not that that's a complete reason to excuse it. Having it only 5 feet wide, though, reduces the chance of that parking. The cars would overhang into the road and cause a concern. We did look at kind of shifting everything to one side and making it a larger lane or shoulder on one side, and that was one reason why we determined to stay centered on the road, because then it does lean more towards people thinking that it's a parkable shoulder.
We did have issues. That's why the 4 no parking signs are up there. We had to go to the Muni, and the cars were hanging over there. I nearly had a head-on collision there because of the snow removal problems. So anything you could do to distinguish that as a non-parking place.
Yeah, and if we do mark it, you're right. It's enforceable as a bike lane, and law enforcement can tow vehicles out of there. The other thing on your traffic calming and the speed humps, the current lanes are about 12 feet, 13 feet in sections. It's by narrowing it and giving drivers that visual of it only being 10 feet has a traffic calming effect. So we're hoping that helps with some of that traffic or that speeding concern that we have through that section. But yes, I'll look more into and make sure that we address the parking concern on the shoulder. I appreciate
That'd be great. And I assume the shoulder striping would be a white line of some sort?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, anything you could do to make those shoulders special.
Yep.
But good work. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all
And
I had, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you, Marnie. And I see Harrison, you've put something in the chat expressing your support on this proposal. Is there anybody else that wants to say anything on this particular project? I don't know, David, you know, you may be too young to know the full history, and I'm trying to think what year. So help me out, Marnie and John, when we formed a Safe Routes to Schools committee. Probably at least,
That was
well,
2014, 2015.
that's okay. That's what I was thinking, but I didn't want to say it. So 10-ish years ago, and identified, what was it, 16 or 17 things to try and deal with better safety for students traveling to and from the West Roma campus. And this is one of them. So
Yeah.
fast forward, quote unquote, fast forward, and here we are looking to see this perhaps next year, hopefully next year. Again, thank you, Marnie, for really taking the lead on this the last few years and pushing this.
So
I'm-
if you have no objections, David, what I would like to do, a lot of neighbors keep asking me what's happening, and I've been kind of waiting. I don't want to get out of sync here. So is it okay if I just put a postcard to all the property owners and residents and just let them know this thing is still in the works and hoping for 2025?
I don't have a problem with it, but I'd ask that you pass that through either Brooke Blessing or Melinda.
Sure,
So
will do. Okay.
and Kathy, to answer your question briefly, I attended West, so I walked this corridor as a kid and know a lot of the issues there. And early in my career, I think in that 2014 range, we were looking at a sidewalk through this corridor.
Oh, yeah.
So I know some of the history. I won't claim I know all of it, but I'm happy to see some improvements going in that can help that pedestrian traffic and slow the vehicular traffic, because I was probably one of the speeders on there as well as a kid. So
We've been through a lot to try to get this road down to sizable scale here. But,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much again for all of your participation. And, you know, if there's more to report, then just, let us know and we can schedule you on a future community council meeting agenda.
Absolutely.
Okay,
like-
thank you so much.
Does Steve have one question before I sign off?
Oh,
Yeah. Hey, David,
sorry, go ahead, Steve.
David, maybe you could put it in chat, an email or some way I can get a hold of you at a later date?
Yeah, it's right here, but I'll put it in the chat as well.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, great. All right, we need to move on to the last item under old and new business. As Anna had put in her report and I announced at last month's meeting, the 2040 capital improvement program, roads and drainage and park improvements list. They ask for a priority ranking every year, and we participated in this for decades. And so that process has been announced. The deadline for input is June 15th. So what we typically do is we form anybody who wants to serve on a committee to review our current priority list that we passed last year, see if we want to make any amendments. We can add, we can delete, but the overriding caution for many years is be consistent. If we suddenly would move our number 3 project down to number 18 and we move our number 15 up to 1, it doesn't really, we try and avoid that. We try and be consistent, because over time, and I mean it takes a long time, gradually our higher ranked projects have some of them have gotten done over time. And so David, can you remove that screen share that you've got? Thank you. So anyway, but we can form a committee now. We'll meet between now and our June 6th meeting and with recommendations, and then we'll put it on the agenda for approval or, amended at our June 6th meeting, so we can get everything submitted to the Muni by June 15th. So is there anybody that would like to serve on the 2024 CIP committee? Anybody want to raise your hands? I'm not seeing hands raised. Why am I, oh, wait, Sarah, thank you, Sarah. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody? We should at least have
Yes.
maybe 3 or 4. Dan, you want to be on it?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Marnie, thank you. Of course, I will be on it. So that's at least 4 of us. Anybody else? You know, if Pat Redmond had joined us this evening, oh, Steve, great. She probably would be volunteering. She typically is. I can contact Pat to see if she'd like to serve. So that would be a nice group. Anybody else? Okay, great. So we'll just report back at our June 6th meeting after we've met and taken the list and evaluated it to see if we want to amend it in any way.
Excuse
So,
me, Kathy.
oh, sorry, Kathleen.
Sorry, could you say again what this committee is? I'm sorry, I missed that.
It's the capital improvement project ranking that we
Okay.
do every year.
Okay,
And so like if you went on the Muni website and just Googled it or whatever, you'd see what Turnigan's is right now that we approved a year ago.
okay. All right, thank you.
And yeah, and this isn't anything new. We've been doing this for many, many years. Okay, good enough. So now into land use committee report. And so, John, if you want to take the lead on the August 30th meeting, the Monday meeting that we had with some co-sponsors.
April 30th?
Excuse me, April 30th. Yeah, I don't know what month it is. Anyway, go ahead, John. Take the floor here.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to start with a little bit of background because a lot of people are really not familiar with what this is all about. And so for those who don't know, this has been an assembly initiative with 3 assembly sponsors that are trying to create more attainable, affordable housing in Anchorage. And they're trying to do so by changing a couple pieces of code. As far as the zoning districts go, they're trying to consolidate 15 zones into 5 zones. And they're going to try to do this by increasing density in these zones through allowed uses, changing some of the dimensional standards, and by combining these zones, reducing administrative delays that are created by variances. And one of the things to note is that these 5 new consolidated zones were things that were envisioned in the 2040 land use plan. So they are kind of shown in that. This has gone before the Planning and Zoning Commission for a initial public hearing, and we testified on that back in April 18th. It's scheduled for
March 18th.
And scheduled for the remainder of the hearing and probably Planning and Zoning Commission action in May 20th. And then there is going to be probably assembly action on it in mid-June. And this thing has been moving pretty fast. A lot of community councils have tried to slow it down. And our testimony on May 18th was primarily to raise concerns about public process and slow it down and not take a position about whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. And so the 3 sponsors, Anna Brawley, Daniel Boland, and Meg Zalatel, have been giving presentations among a bunch of different groups. We asked them to come before the land use committee, and we had a meeting on Monday night, and I apologize. We got to do a better job of getting notice out of these meetings ahead of time so people can plan for them. But we had a presentation from them and were able to ask some questions about what they propose to do. And there's a couple things I want to focus on. So this is what they're doing here in terms of combining the 5 land use. And what we have in Turnigan is primarily the R1 through the R2A and R2D. We have some R2M and some R3, and this is how they're combining them. We don't worry so much about the large lot residential, which is Hillside. The majority of ours is going to be what's a new single family and 2-family residential zone with all these items being combined in it. And then the R2M is going to fit in the compact mixed residential, and the R3A is going to fit in the compact mixed residential medium. And so what they're proposing to do, this looks kind of what the land use plan is like. They're not proposing to expand any of these zones, but So rather than have, say, 5 different zones in close proximity to each other, you're now going to have like one zone, which is a single family, 2-family. So they don't change the outer boundaries, but where the changes occur are going to be in a couple areas, kind of what they call the, see if I get to it here, the dimensional standards and the use tables. And so there's a couple of, and pardon me for zipping through these, there's a couple of different presentations out there, and Kathy put some links to some of the presentations on the agenda, which is worth people looking at. There's also an interactive land use map. But essentially what they're going to be doing is they're going to be in, so when they combine, say, 5 different zones into a new single family, 2-family, they're going to be picking the smallest minimum lot area, the smallest minimum lot width, and the greatest maximum lot coverage of any of those 5 zones they're combining and applying it to all of them. So that's going to have the effect of increasing density. Height limits pretty much stay the same. Setbacks, for the most part, in the single family, 2-family stay the same. But you're going to see that some of your lot sizes are going to decrease. And that means you can put more structure on them. But one of the concerns is that may eliminate parking and put more parking on the street. So they're making those changes. The other thing that's important to look at is what's called the use table. And there's a term called use by right, which is shown as P here. Right now, if you're in a single family R1, you can build a single family residence. It's a use by right. Nobody can tell you what to do with it. It doesn't run through a site review, and you basically get to do it. What they're now doing is by combining the R1s and the R2A and R2D into the single 2-family, is it means that now what will be permitted is you can now have a single family dwelling, you can have a duplex, you can have a single family attached, you can actually put in a mobile home on a foundation. And these are now all going to be permitted uses in this new single family, 2-family. Being able to put manufactured home, that's going to become a conditional use. So you're going to have more density by having more different types of dwellings and smaller lot sizes in this district. And similar changes are occurring in the compact residential low and medium. So those are sort of the really big changes, what's happening with the use tables and what's happening with the dimensional standards. There's a third piece that is happening, and that the planning department has contended that they need to amend the comprehensive plan and the 2040 plan because this constitutes a rezoning. And there's a significant difference of opinion between the assembly sponsors and the planning staff right now about what is needed. And the assembly has put together a proposed amendment to the comprehensive plan, which is really pretty short. And from my looking at it, tends to remove a lot of the standards that require that new development be compatible in character with the existing neighborhood. And so one of the concerns will be is that some of these higher density, whether they're duplexes or things like that, could have impact on community character, and waiting to see what the planning department is going to say in terms of their comments. So I would suggest people look at the links on the agenda and look at some of these things to see what you think of it. There's sort of another thing going on is that the assembly has this practice of laying new ordinances on the table at the night of a meeting, which means you don't know they're coming and you don't get to see them. And one of the things they're trying to do is they want to get approved in June the ability to modify the comprehensive plan and modifying the zoning ordinances in one meeting. And there's new ordinance that's been laid on the table for that. So we had a presentation from Anna and Daniel Volan asking them questions about this and going through some of it, and they provided some additional information. Nobody, I think, in TCC, whether it's the land use committee or anybody else, has taken an opinion on this yet because we're still trying to digest it. But I think when it comes down to the meeting that's going to happen on May 20th, we probably need to decide whether we support some of this, all of this, or none of this. And I guess one question is, I don't know how we're going to get feedback from TCC as a whole. That's something for us to think about.
John, can I step in 1 second of what you just said?
Go ahead.
Actually, at the March 18th public hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing, you did testify on behalf of the council because we did have this on our March meeting. And so we did take positions that you expressed then. And one of the requests was to continue the public hearing. I mean,
Yes.
there were some procedural things, and they ended up doing just that. So there were there was a fair amount of people that testified on March 18th. Some people held back, including me, just in case they continued, and it turns out they did. But now this comes before them again May 20th. So technically, TCC has already testified on this. I haven't as an individual yet. And other residents, Jernigan folks, anybody can testify on this on their own. But something that Anna and Daniel said at our meeting on Monday night was that, as John said, they might lay things on the table. I mean, they're looking at changes of what they presented to P&Z on March 18th. So the question that I asked them, and they didn't have an answer, was, but Anna even said, if the changes are significant enough, they may have to do a new public hearing or allow those who have already testified on March 18th to be able to testify again. And if that's the case, then Jernigan Community Council per se could testify. That's an open-ended question that we don't know when we'll have an answer to. But just one last thing, there is a work session with the P&Z Commission on this coming Monday, the 6th. And so maybe, I mean, I know I plan to attend, John, hopefully.
Yeah, and it's open to the public to attend. It's at 5:30.
Oh, yeah, it's open to anybody.
Yeah, and it's the
And
4700 Elmar room, so Elmore rather, yep.
Yeah, at 10 o'clock.
From the 5:30.
Excuse me, 5:30. I
Yep.
was thinking of a today meeting.
Yep.
So anyway, I mean, we're kind of up in the air, as is every community council in the city, and some, I mean, other councils provided input too on March 18th. We don't know as of a council, we can testify again. Hopefully we'll know more soon, but we don't know. So sorry, John, to interrupt, but that was kind of a clarification.
So I think one of the challenges here is that we're still getting information on what they're going to do and what the planning staff response is going to be. And that means that we cannot write comments if we get them in for a May 20th meeting, which means they have to get in at least a week ahead of time. We can't bring something before the June TCC meeting because it's going to be too late. And so I guess a question I have is, how do we get input from members of the council tonight or by sending them in later to help us form what our position on this is going to be? And I guess it might be worth at this point in time opening it up to questions to see what questions people might have. And I'm going to stop sharing at this point in time.
Okay, thanks, John. It's a lot to take in, a lot to digest. I mean, I've seen 2 presentations at the FCC delegate level. I saw what they presented to Planning and Zoning Commission. I saw, what they presented to us at our land use committee meeting Monday, and my head just still is partially swimming on all of this. And, that's kind of where I think a lot of people residents and community councils have concerns, because this does seem to be such a high priority for the assembly. They're trying to shortcut or, simplify or I'm not sure what verb I'm trying to think of, that they're really trying to push this through as fast as they can. But we don't know. Yeah, we don't know anything about how this may end up.
So I guess Kathy, so Merle has a question. So we might go to
Yes,
Merle.
Merle. Yes, go ahead, Merle.
I have not only a question, but I have for the benefit of everybody that's listening to this, the meeting they talked about, the land use committee meeting on Monday, that committee did not vote one way or the other, did not take it up as an item to vote on. So the land use committee has not made a decision about this. Now, a couple of things that struck me is, of course, I've lived here since day one here, and I will tell you that I do not want to see our nice big 8,000 square foot lots like in Turnigan and over where I live in Broadmoor, cut up into little bitty chunks so that you can have more density housing. I would point out to everybody, and I would have pointed, had I had a chance on Monday, I would have pointed out to Ann Brawley and that guy. First of all, when you do what you're going to do, that means kids can't play in the yards. They're going to have to go someplace else, and you don't want your kids going into the parks these days. And the other thing is, go to the edge of the inlet here and look across. There is thousands and thousands of acres right across the inlet for these developers to go develop if they wanted to go develop it. But this business of forcing something down people's throats on the hand that you want to get more high rise, more intense, and you don't have an answer. Well, what are you going to do at these eightplexes like you see out in Mountain View, where there's no place to park the snow, there's no places to park their cars? You're going to want to do that in Turnigan. I tell you what, I'm opposed to it, and we did not book, but the meeting on Monday was a listening session. It was not a meeting of the land use committee, and I think the land use committee should have taken this up and made a recommendation to the community council, one way or the other, but they didn't do that.
So
Thank you,
Kathy, I
Merrill.
think there's a procedural question, and the question becomes, it was sort of a briefing, and I don't know that we've had enough information to take a position. If we need to write testimony and submit it for a May 20th Planning Commission meeting, how do we get input into creating a TCC position? Do we hold another land use committee meeting? Do we ask people to send in their comments and we sort them out? That's, I guess, the questions I have. We might want to see if anybody else has any other questions they want to ask of us who attended the meeting.
Well, so John, we talked a little bit about this before, and which seems like that my understanding, it seems like they're kind of closing this down for public comment. And I'd sure like to see that opened up again. And, part of maybe is my own ignorance, but I didn't stay on top of this myself. But gosh, I have lots of things to ask and to talk about. Doesn't seem like there's an option for that right now. Is there any way that we, well, you were talking a little bit about how to make our comment go forward, but that means we're going to have to educate everybody on the council. So I don't know.
And I think the question also becomes, to me, you have two choices. The three choices. You can say, we oppose what you're doing. We can say that if you're going to do this, you need to do these things and we need to offer them specifics. Or we say, we're completely happy with what you're doing and go ahead. And I would probably think that not many people are in that third category. We've already gotten the Planning and Zoning Commission to postpone one meeting, and strategically, we'd have to come up with a really good reason to get them to make changes again, because they probably said you've had public hearings, etc. The strategy may be when you get in front of the assembly, you have three sponsors who are gung-ho to get this thing through, but you have 8 other assembly people, and if they get enough public pressure, they may slow things down. But I think what you have to do is you have to give them some very strong reasons to slow things down so that you're not ignored. And I haven't had any time to think about what that strategy might be.
And John, thank you. And FYI, I mean, there are other councils and entities that have a lot of concerns about this. Even though we all agree at the 40,000 foot level, we need more affordable housing, which is low income housing, and attainable housing, which is mid income housing. Nobody's arguing that point. It's just how we get there without, I think, John, you had kind of summed it up that, after Monday's meeting, it's it's parking. Merle, you nailed it. And we think parking is going to be a big issue and, or lack thereof. And then also just the character of the neighborhood. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's Mountain View or Turnagain or, any other neighborhood in town, it doesn't matter. We all have character in our neighborhoods, and this could over time really change characters of neighborhood. I mean, just how you view your neighborhood in terms of, well, I think Merle, kids playing in the yard, or now all the yard is taken up because literally somebody could build 2 single-family homes on a lot where one is developed now.
Okay, Kathy,
That's even hard to imagine.
quick point of
So,
order, we're 9:50,
Oh,
8:59.
thank
Do we
you.
need to extend 10 minutes? And I so moved.
Can we make it 15 just so we don't have to?
Okay, so move, we're extending for 15 minutes.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second, I second.
Thank you, Lamar. Any opposition? Okay, we're extended. So anyway, thank you, John.
Yeah, so I think, we'll have a better idea where things are going after the meeting on Monday. And there may be other community councils there. I know some of them have been emailing you, Kathy, and giving you updates, and maybe we can find out where they're going. If we were to hold another land use committee meeting to discuss this and get some decisions made prior to submitting this to the Planning and Zoning Commission a week ahead of the May 20th meeting, we'd probably need to hold that towards the end of next week, and that's a consideration. Because I don't know right now if we have enough information or a consensus among the people that are on here or others, which way we go, other than that we're not really comfortable where they're going right now.
John, my
No.
suggestion is on this, that my suggestion would be have a meeting, and if you can't if these deadlines are too close in, we can't make it, that's your position. But you don't go in and start talking to these people, like you made it, like the people that are here tonight actually made a decision. If you can't make a decision, you can't make a decision, and that's it. And you tell people. Thank you.
Good point, Merle. I mean, that's, and just from a perspective that I get tired of saying it, but I'm proud of it. I worked on working groups and so forth, when the comprehensive plan, the 2020 comprehensive plan, when that document was updated, that took multiple years to put together. There was so much dialogue. And everybody in the room, the developers, community council types, everybody, you could talk to each other and figure it out and wordsmith things. Same thing for the 2040 land use plan. Same scenario. There were tons of meetings, stakeholder meetings where we talked about this. We scripted every word in that plan, all the action items, everything, because we talked it out. We thought it through carefully. Now the cart is before the horse. The assembly co-sponsors, the 3 co-sponsors, feel like we could just do this by amending Title 21. We don't have to worry about any other plan. And PNZ's, planning staff said, no, you need to amend those plans before you can amend Title 21. So they're going, okay, we'll just do it all at once. And it just seems like a slap in the face to how much effort was put in and thought put into those 2 plans to ensure, and they recognize we need more density in certain and areas. There's target areas in that document where that could perhaps be implemented, but not just full scale every inch of the the bowl. So it's really difficult to know how to approach this now. Marnie, go ahead.
One thought I had as far as a mechanism for establishing a position, because the public knowledge of this is nil. I mean, no, virtually nobody knows what's going on here, except people that are involved, like right here tonight. And one of my thoughts is that perhaps if we could see what the planning department's comments are, if we could endorse them, do something along that line as a framework.
that's a good idea. I mean, yeah, I'm anxious to see what is discussed next Monday.
Right.
Because that could give us a lot of guidance. You're right, Marnie. I mean, that may be just where we're at right now.
So again, maybe what we might want to do is let's see what we find out next Monday, and anybody who is here right now is welcome to go and listen. Then maybe we do try to schedule a land use committee meeting towards the end of next week, see if we can get some planning department comments, and then see if those are really a good way to go to endorse them.
Okay, well, I think, does anybody else want to weigh in on this right now?
I was-
Yeah, Harrison, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I feel like it feels a little too fresh for everyone here to really come to a decision tonight.
Yeah.
And it might just be the sort of thing where we just, we can't take any action at this point. Um, we'll put it on the agenda, but I don't know what else we can do really.
Yep. Yeah, it's, I
Okay.
mean, we will have an opportunity to say something to the planning and zoning. I really suspect that it'll be difficult to prevent this being approved by planning and zoning and sent forward to the assembly. But I think people can think about it, look at the links that are in the agenda that Kathy sent out. And again, we'll try to see if we can hold a land use committee meeting for anyone who wants to attend in the next week and share new information we have and talk about options.
Yeah, I agree. It's a difficult thing, and I have some concerns about it too. Don't. Yeah, yeah. No,
Okay,
yeah, sounds
okay,
good.
we've got, thank you, Harrison. And we've got 2 more agenda items, just, FYI, John got notified as TCC's rep that there's another stakeholder meeting scheduled for May 29th with the airport master plan update. Otherwise, John, I don't think there's anything else to report right now.
No, I mean,
It's
what's
just-
interesting about this
that's
one
what's
is
coming up.
it's a combined public member and airport lessee. So they're bringing the 2 advisory groups together
Okay,
on May 29th, and they are going to be presenting the airport's preferred alternative for the master plan. So, we'll sort of see where they go with this. There hasn't been any scheduled public hearing associated with this that I've seen. It's gonna be at the Coast Inn, and I think was at something like 10 in the morning, but I'm just gonna check. It's actually
Maybe
at
that's
10
right.
a.m. in the
Yes,
morning
it's 10
on
a.m.
the 29th. And so public can sit and listen in. Anybody who's interested in airport stuff, this would be really good to come and listen in. And so that's just an update on where that is. And then we'll see what they send out ahead of time, and we can share it with folks.
And the airport doesn't hold public hearings, John. They just have comment periods.
Comment periods, okay. But public, yeah, poster board, talk to people, comment period, got it.
Okay, okay, and then lastly, which is, it's kind of sad that we're gonna have a very short period of time to discuss this, but we knew that was gonna be the case. Fish Creek Trail Connection Project. And if you attended last month's meeting, John Haxby, who is a Turnagain resident that lives on Resolution Drive, and has been active in following the trail connection project, referenced something about, a legal situation, and, kind of given us a little bit of heads up. So, that was interesting, and anyway, so fast forward, I was contacted by, why don't I have
Chuck
that?
Kopp.
I'm sorry,
Chuck,
what?
Chuck Kopp.
Chuck Kopp, thank you. I don't know where my file is on that. Chuck Kopp, who used to be a legislator, if anybody recognizes that name, for a district in South Anchorage, but he has John and 2 other clients that live in South Anchorage and lives along, the railroad like John does. His backyard abuts the railroad situation. And there apparently is some legal stuff going on. I had no clue, but the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled, and I don't know which way they ruled, but it was on railroad right of way and easements and allowed uses and not allowed uses. And that's, don't ask me any questions because that's literally all I know. But then Chuck said it is now before the US Supreme Court. So again, don't ask me. I don't know what the time frame is, if they'll address it this summer or it goes before them in 2 years. I don't have a clue. So the bottom line is, Chuck wanted to attend our meeting this evening just to give us a brief update. But I knew the board knew when we had our board meeting that that wouldn't be brief. And we felt like, because we had so much on this agenda already. And he probably has a lot of interesting things to get us much more informed than what I just spieled out. So, John, the board decided we should just have another land use committee meeting and invite Chuck to, so we can sit down and he can just have all the time he needs to kind of lay out what the situation is with regard from this project from a purely legal standpoint and how it may or may not affect this project. That hasn't been scheduled yet, but Chuck said he was available. Gosh, John, I know you got that email. So when did he say? Maybe between the 10th and the 17th of this month.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have enough on our hands, high priority with the home initiative, that my preference would be to put him off to June. And also in June, there's been talk about the Fish Creek project team starting briefings of communities. So I really, my preference would be to put him off to June if we can, because it's not super time sensitive compared to some of these other things.
Right.
With regard to meeting at the land use committee level or at our June council meeting?
I think land use committee meetings. But again, that's, if we did do it, yeah, I mean, my time is kind of pretty tight between now and when I get back from a trip in the last week in May. So I think, with everything going on with the home initiative, I would rather wait till later to deal with this. But again, this is kind of a will of the group. And do we need to have something we need to report to the council as a whole in our June meeting? That would be the only question.
Well, we don't, and the board, when we talked in April, it was like, we need to have another meeting we need to invite the project team members either to a land use committee meeting or to a regular meeting. Because of things that we found out at the Anchorage Transportation Fair where that was the first time we knew they were going to relocate part of the coastal trail out into the mudflats. So we wanted to get an update from them. And then we also talked about whenever it's good, do a summer on-site visit with them. So, I mean, it's a multi-tiered thing that we want from them. And so the timing of all that is, I don't know where that project is. It was something we were hoping to maybe find out, but, the April bond passed, which allowed more muni matching money for a lot more federal money for the project. So it is definitely moving forward, whether there's legal issues or not. And so it's a good suggestion. If I kind of hate to do that to Chuck, but that certainly we can ask him if he could attend a meeting, anyway, a meeting in June. If we meet in May, then we could bring something forth to the council at our June 6th meeting. But, yeah, Steve.
Considering all the legal stuff, what are the deadlines for federal money for this project, for this trail?
To be used, I have no idea. Good question. I mean, I'm sure that there's a time frame. It can't go on forever, but I really honestly have no idea. The project team can answer that question.
I'd sure like to know, because that certainly sets a whole different, perhaps a whole different precedent about how to proceed with this. So,
And Harrison, do you have a hand up or no?
I wanted to say, if I could just get an update on that on the next meeting, kind of a summary of everything that's going on. It doesn't have to be super in depth, and I'm not asking you to, to go way out of your way, but just, yeah, it sounds a little bit more involved than we're even able to get into right now.
Okay, Kathy, we got 1 minute left.
Okay, I think we're
Move
all
we
ready
adjourn.
to end this meeting. Does anybody have one final comment? Dan? Did I see
I move we
wave?
adjourn.
What?
I move we adjourn.
Dan moves to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
You're here a second.
Steve seconds. Is there any objection to adjourning this May 2nd event-filled, action-packed agenda? I see no objection, so the meeting is adjourned at 9:14. So thank you guys so much for hanging in and your interest in all of this. It's a lot to take in, but thanks so much. You guys enjoy the rest of your night and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
Kathy.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you, Kathy,
Bye.
John.